All right. Well, I have been traveling for work and I'm back, and so we can continue our series on the architecture of reality. And one of the things that um, I've been thinking about a lot, especially as I just continue to read on cosmology, is that when you look at the understandings of cosmology in the ancient world, and then compare them to the cosmologies in the Enlightenment, one of the things that they have a hard time grasping is cosmology that is both solid, that has a nature, that has a um, an intention, but that is also uh, changeable, a cosmology that both um, has a substance, is something, is on purpose, but also is intended to change. When you look at the ancient world, this is one of the most difficult things for the philosophers to imagine. You either have um, people that fall on the side of everything is one and it's unchanging and that change is an illusion, or that everything is flux, everything is whirl, everything is constantly changing, and there's nothing that is solid. But when we look at the book of Genesis, we actually get a different picture of reality than that. We get a picture of reality that both is solid, that is intended, that has a substance and a nature, but it also is intended to change and be changed. So uh, if you look through, the first 6 days of creation, God creates. He says, "Let there be light." He separates the light from the darkness. He separates the land from the sea. He separates the sky from the land. All of these different things, and then says it's good. Right? It's good the way it is, and then it's changed into something good. And then when we get to Adam and Eve, Adam and Eve are made in the image of God, and then they're given a transformative mission in the world. So Adam is created, and he's told that his job is to tend and guard the garden. Well, tending a garden means expanding it, growing it, or taking it from what it is to something new. And then guarding it and protecting it is his other role. And it's interesting because when he is given that mission, you get the sense that he receives the mission and he says, "Okay, let's do this." But then, as an aside, God says it's not good that he'd be alone. That he's alone, right? That now, when the "it's not good" comes along, a lot of times we think in terms of, he's going to get lonely, which may or may not be true. There may have been a problem of loneliness. We see later that a wife is given for the comfort, the mutual comfort of one another. The Bible tells us that loneliness is something that marriage helps solve. Um, but what you don't, what we forget is the "it's not good" comes immediately after the mission that God has given. That the "it's not good" means he's not going to be able to accomplish the mission that he's been given to take dominion and garden the world, or take the garden and expand it. That he needs a helper. He's supposed to multiply. There's gonna need to be more people to do it, and that's an obvious way that he needs a helper. But there is another layer of needing a helper that we see when, as the Bible goes along, that there's a wisdom in the way a woman sees the world that a man doesn't have unless he has a good relationship with a woman, right? That there's something that moms teach their boys, that sisters teach their brothers, that wives teach their husbands about. There's a perspective on the world that they bring, that needs to be added together with the masculine perspective, and you take both perspectives, and then they can see how to accomplish together. They can see how to accomplish the mission that God has given. Um, but what's really what I in terms of cosmology, in the process of creation, God keeps separating things, and then establishing something new in that separation. And he separates the light from the darkness. He separates the sky from the ground. He separates the land from the sea. Right there's and and then he says it's good, and then he separates Adam and Eve. Right, he takes Eve out of Adam's side and creates a separation and says it's very good. And then they two are together, are the image of God, who are going to do the same sorts of thing that God has been doing up till this time. So he's been creating, he's been naming, he's been speaking. There's been creativity that we've seen in God. All of these things are what make up the image of God. But one of the things that he's been doing is taking dominion of this place, and then that's the mission that he gives Adam. And what I think is really important in that moment um, is that he gives Adam the responsibility, and then but without the ability to do it on his own. And then he gives the gift of Eve, but he never takes back the responsibility from Adam. The responsibility remains with Adam, but what he needs is to bring Eve into his mission to be able to accomplish it. So that means that everything that Eve brings into the marriage and into the mission is a gift, right? That the responsibility is not split in half. The Adam is split in half, but the responsibility remains with Adam, and that means that his posture towards Eve needs to be the same posture that Romans 1 tells us he's supposed to have towards everything, which is gratitude. And that gratitude turns out to be central to the transformative mission in the world, that receiving the world as a gift, receiving Eve as a gift, and everything that Eve does as a gift is, and turns out to be central to keeping the creature and God, right? Keeping us out of idolatry. Um, and when you when when things have gone wrong historically in marriage, it goes wrong either into chauvinism or into feminism, right? And both of those are a move away from gravity, or from gratitude. I mean, gravity as well, but it's a move away from gratitude. Um, a move away from seeing one another as gifts, right? So that Adam, with his responsibility and his mission, when Eve is brought into the marriage, that mission is a gift to her, right? That she gets to take on his mission as her own, and that's what the word submission means, right? Coming under the mission of another, so that she receives the Adam's mission as her and takes it on as her own as gratitude. But that submission is itself a gift that she's giving, that Eve is giving to Adam, right? That so the posture towards one another as gratitude is central to being able to accomplish the mission, being able to come together, because it is the opposite of rivalry, right? So Eve, if Eve said, no, I'm not interested in your mission, Adam. I'm going to go do my own thing. Then Adam would have never been able to accomplish his mission. But Eve wouldn't doesn't have the things that Adam needs to be able to uh, sorry, Adam doesn't have the thing on his own that Eve brings into the mission, but Eve doesn't have the things on her own that Adam brings into the world. So the posture towards one another of gratitude is what brings back together the thing that God separated, in order to then become a full representation of God, an image of God together towards the creation. And then the creation that God has established, right? He has ordered everything according to its kind. He has set up the different spheres in the world. He set up the garden and the land and the wilds, right? He set up all the world as it is. Then the mission becomes transform that world that you find as it is by receiving it in gratitude and then taking dominion, which means bringing it to its intended end, right? So you have at that point a cosmos that is well established in its identity, right? It is a certain thing because God created it that, and it's a thing that's intended to be transformed. So that problem, that ancient problem of, is this all one that has a solid substance, that has a solid ontology? Is it all one that has an intended use? Or is it something that's constantly changing? Well, it turns out to be both. It turns out to be both. And that's because it reflects the triune nature of God, and we reflect that creative triune nature of God, that gift-giving triune nature of God, that the triune nature of God gets hold of things and transforms them, and then evaluates them and says, "This is good." Right. So the we see. Uh, so when you say, "Is Adam the image of God?" You say, "Yes." Is Eve the image of God? Yes. Are they the image of God before their marriage? Yes, they both are. When they get married, are they together the image of God? Well, yes. And God calls them together the image of God, and he calls them each the image of God separately. So before they were married, they were the image of God. And then they come together and they are the image of God. So there's a transformation that happens that doesn't change their substantive nature. They still are who God intended them to be, and they can transform into fuller, newer, deeper expressions of the image of God as well. So the question of is nature solid or is it changeable? The answer is yes, both. It's both solid and it's the kind of thing that can be changed and transformed and improved upon without it losing its nature. So um, right there in Genesis 1 and 2, you see both in the cosmos of everything and then in the microcosm of Adam and Eve, you see the answer to that ancient cosmological question of, are things static or do things change? The answer is both.